No,
I think there's like some pretty significant notice requirements for that.
Yeah, the 30-minute requirement, leaving 30 minutes early or arriving 20 minutes late without regrets for multiple meetings.
All right. Just give me 1 second here. So everybody should be able to see my screen with the live notes.
Yes. I don't know if you
July.
can see when it comes up.
All right. A quorum being present on the Teams call, I will call this meeting to order at 10:35 a.m. First is the Territorial Acknowledgement. The Students' Council of the Waterloo Undergraduate Student Association acknowledges that we live and work on the traditional territory of the neutral Anishinaabe and Haudenosaunee peoples. The University of Waterloo is situated on the Haldeman Tract, land promised to the Six Nations, which includes 6 miles on each side of the Grand River. As we gather virtually, I encourage all members of council to reflect on the territories in which they find themselves and the historical relationships of Indigenous people to those lands. Next is the approval of the agenda. Be it resolved that council approve the agenda as presented. So that is, the motion is assumed. There's a comment from Rebecca.
Hi, I just don't think I'm on the attendance list. If I could be added, that would be great.
So sorry, can I ask you to clarify like what you mean by attendance list? Like, did you not receive the agenda in advance?
I did, but like for some reason it doesn't say my name on it.
Oh, I see what you mean.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Sorry, what's the name?
Rebecca Dragison.
It is there. It's at the bottom of first page.
Oh yes, I see it as well.
Okay, thank you. Never mind then. I guess I just missed it. Thanks.
All good. Thank you. Are there any other comments on the agenda as presented? Seeing none, I will take approval to a vote. Does anybody oppose approving the agenda as presented? Hearing none, does anybody abstain? Hearing none, the motion carries. We have approved the agenda. I'll note for the recording that Vice President Schwartz arrived at 10:35 a.m. So as we were coming to order. Next is approval of the minutes. So the motion is council approves the minutes of the May 16, 2021 and June 11, 2021 meetings as presented. These minutes are found on the council teams for reference. So I will assume the motion. I guess, can we hear a second?
I'll second Cannon.
Cannon seconds. So are there any comments on the minutes for our first 2 meetings this year?
I do have one.
Okay, go ahead.
For the 16th meeting, it says I abstained from appointment of the assistant secretary, whereas I abstained from appointment of the deputy speaker.
Okay. I guess I will note that and inform Mike.
Thank you.
Okay, Mike is still with us. I thought you might be gone by now.
I figured I'd stay for at least a minute.
Okay, excellent. Are there any other comments on the minutes? Okay, hearing none, we will take the motion to approve to a vote. Does anybody oppose approving the minutes for May 16, 2021 and June 11, 2021? Does anybody wish to abstain? Hearing neither, the motion carries unanimously, and we've approved the minutes. Thank you, Mike. Next is reports. First is executive reports, and the first executive report is my report. I sent it a little later. I guess the general, like, what I've been up to since the last meeting is like annual plan has kind of been the big time sink, and had some other meetings with stakeholders around approval of ancillary fees for the fall term, along with VP Schwartz. I guess I'm happy to take any questions on my report. Cannon?
I don't know if this is part of your report or Matthew's report, but about the university admin asking us to keep the NSOC fees still optional for consistency's sakes, and they're willing to pay back any difference that is caused based on fall 2019 opt-out rates and the fall 2021 opt-out rates, if there are any.
Yes. So the associate provost students and the vice president administration and finance, maybe I'll take a step back for counselors. So usually fees are approved for the fall term at the June Board of Governors meeting. In COVID times, they have delegated the approval of ancillary fees, so that's like the student service fees and society fees, to the president and the provost of the university, on the advice of a sort of a working group of myself, so the WUSA president and vice president operations and finance, the grad student association president, and the associate provost students and VP administration and finance of the university. So we have met with that group. The engineering society recently approved at their joint annual general meeting a return to compulsory, like a compulsory basis for the assessment of their fee. The university basically refused to allow that to happen. But I guess as a compromise, they were willing to backstop the difference in opt-outs to fall 2019 levels. So say NSHOC assesses $100,000 they assessed $100,000 in fall 2019, and in fall 2021 they only get $50,000. The university will cover the other $50,000. Is essentially how we understand it. I guess it's not ideal. Obviously, like, our opposition to the student choice initiative was based on the fact that students ought to be able to decide democratically how fees are assessed to their collective, and by WUSA's assessment, NSHOC has satisfied that to approve a compulsory fee, and the university is basically refusing to to work with it. So I guess it's the backstop, I guess, is at least something. There's a point of privilege from Vincent.
Sorry, I'm a bit lost. Where are we in the agenda right now?
This is the report of the president.
Okay. Gotta bring it up on the screen in that case, or?
Oh, sorry, yeah. I can.
Steph is before me.
Oh, sorry, Steph, go ahead.
That was rude, Ben. Yeah, I was just wondering if you could, like, elaborate on the compulsory fee thing, because I know that when we discussed it, it was a little bit more nuanced than that. If you can just, for the sake of counsel, explain what is meant by compulsory in this case.
Sure. So I think what you're getting at, Steph, is that so the Student Choice Initiative forced the university to develop a system where students could opt out at the point of payment. So in other words, on Quest, and fees are charged either on a compulsory basis where you have to pay the fee, or on an optional basis. Obviously, WUSA Council recently, like at our May meeting, approved a return to compulsory fees. The Engineering Society wants to do that, but they also wanted to have like a refund model where you come into their office and do refunds. And the university also found that unacceptable because, like, citing like equitable access to like campus to be able to get a refund, and then Cannon, and then Vincent.
So how long have they made this commitment for? Like, is it just for the fall term? Does it also include winter term? What happens if another society goes to mandatory? Are they willing to backstop their fee too at the same rate?
So it's only for fall, and that is a good question. I think the university, like, if the more societies that move to a compulsory fee, the more willing the university will be to work with that. Because part of their concern is like the consistency across the class of society fees. But it's a tricky situation for WUSA, right? Because ultimately the university assesses the fee for us. So they basically have the university has the power to like do what it wants, basically, which is unfortunate, but kind of the way of the road. Then Vincent.
This is my direct response first?
Sure.
So you said that the university didn't want the refund because of like equitable access to like being on campus. Is that like a permanent concern they're going to have, or is that just kind of like a COVID, not everyone's on campus concern?
So because it's this working group is only approving ancillary fees for the fall, I assume that it is only for the fall, but I would not be surprised if there is resistance beyond the fall term. So I don't know if it turns to, oh, sorry.
Sorry, because I'm just like, as if it's just access to campus past COVID, that seems like it wouldn't be a thing.
Yeah, the university is also, I think, partly motivated by like they've developed this whole like Quest system where you can do opt-outs at point of payment, and I don't know, they want people to use that, I guess. But obviously, like from the WUS perspective, is like we oppose that because again, if a society has decided by its own rules that the fee will be assessed on a compulsory basis, then like that, like we are satisfied that like it literally that is the student choice to like to decide how their fees are assessed, and the engineering society has like one of the lowest fees for an engineering society in Ontario, at least, because and they would be able to keep it at a lower rate without opt-outs, right? So then there is another direct response from Steph.
Yeah, sorry. I just wanted to provide some clarification for Cannon, just given how, I guess, why the university is concerned about it not being equal across societies. And that's often that students will misinterpret sort of the fees being set and those decisions being made as something that the university is doing. So like there's been cases where, say, like in your orientation pack, science gets calculators, AHS gets like little stress balls shaped like kangaroos. They'll have students emailing them being like, why am I not getting useful things in my sort of orientation pack? And there tends to be a lot of, I guess, emails and misinterpretations around that I imagine that the university doesn't kind of want to deal with potentially upset parents or upset students kind of pestering about that because they don't fully understand that the decisions are made sort of like independently for each society.
Thanks, Steph. Next is Cannon.
This is the last time I'm going to speak on this topic. I think the university is doing a really stupid thing here. Every society has different financial structures. They have different financial liabilities. And if their organization has decided that they need compulsory fees, it shouldn't matter what other societies are doing. No offense, but there are some societies who have way more of operational side of things than other societies, and they need the money to provide those operational services. It just feels like the university is trying to like draw a wedge between societies by trying to have them draw a line so they can get together and do what they want. I'm hoping in winter term they let societies do what they want, because most people, if not every student except probably the incoming first year class, they usually know the society fees are set by societies and not by university.
Thanks, Cannon. So next is Vincent.
So I guess a question about if the university is like paying back the difference from fall 2019, where is that money coming from? Is it only coming from engineering students, or is it coming out of the general university budget, in which case all students are then putting money towards NSOC? That doesn't sound right.
I don't know. I assume that it's coming out of the associate provost's budget somehow. But I don't know where the money is coming from. But you are right that it's coming from the university's general coffers. So in effect, it is being subsidized by tuition across the whole campus, yes. Go ahead.
So just to clarify, this means that students who are not engineering students and are not paying an NSOC fee, their money is funding NSOC because the university won't respect NSOC's democratic decision.
Indirectly, yes.
Thank you.
Thanks,
Can
Vincent.
that be noted in the minutes?
It's in the recording, so that you wished it to be explicitly mentioned, I'm sure Mike will have it noted. So seeing, MC, I'm guessing that's Mike. Oh, Matt Casale, sorry.
Yeah, hi, sorry. Matthew, I'm the president for Engineering B. I just want you guys to know that we recognize that this was not the situation that we wanted. We wanted it to be a compulsory fee. This was not even close to what we were asking the university for. And when we first heard of it, the first comment that we made was that, like, if you're doing this for NSOC, this should be something that's done university-wide. And to us, it seems unfair, especially since we did follow all of the guidelines that were set forward. So I do want you all to know that, like, we recognize that, and this was not what we were hoping for.
Thanks, Matthew. Yeah, I will also say, like, when it, I guess, became apparent to me that that the university wouldn't budge on this, I said, like, look, I meet with the society presidents, I can share that information with them. Perhaps you can try to frame this, like, because I asked for something in writing to, like, actually have something to show to the societies. And I said, maybe you can try to frame it in a, general sense towards all societies. And then the email we got was just like, hey, engineering society will give you money because we don't want to charge compulsory. I will say that, like, the amount of money that the university, like, would be, like, potentially liable to give to engineering society is, like, honestly trivial, like, probably not even, like, material, like, reaching the threshold of materiality in their budgets, like, in the grand scheme of, operating budgets that are, like, pretty huge. Vincent.
So I know MASSOC has a GM coming up. If MASSOC were to do the same thing, would the university do the same thing for MASSOC?
So I don't know how it will look beyond, like, this is an exceptional year, I guess it should be noted. Like, this approval process is out of the ordinary, but if math and engineering, so, like, engineering still has it in their documents that the fee is to be charged on a compulsory basis. And, like, even if the university won't assess it that way, like, there's authorization for it to be assessed that way from the society. If math society did the same thing, like, that is a huge amount of the student societies that would, in that case, would be on the same page, and that would, I'm sure, have an influence on the university's, like, feelings about this. So I guess, You can definitely try to bring that up at your society. I will note, though, it is a departure from the norm to assess them. Like, historically, they were always like opt-outable, but like you had to go in person, which is I understand what the engineering society wants as well. But because of this new like compulsory optional framework that they have on Quest, like moving them to compulsory assessment is a novelty, I guess. I'm gonna maybe like cut off questions here because I feel like I've gone over the speaking thing. So sorry, Steph. I said I would stop it before I saw your number. So lucky for you, you get a report next. So so go ahead.
So I'm just doing my report now.
Yes, please.
Okay, I will use the first part of my report to just say broadly that if a society is planning on doing this, keep in mind that as soon as it's like in your constitution or whatnot, that like you want fees to be mandatory, that like it doesn't matter what the like if the university does not decide to say no and backstop it, then you're going to be in the situation where your fees are compulsory. So make sure that students are aware when you're moving forward with that for transparency reasons, but other words, you do you. In terms of my report, I think I've been pretty thorough with it. I just wanted to draw folks' particular attentions to some of the information that I left around the online proctoring software. So when you folks are doing sort of advocacy or whatnot around that, just be mindful that this is sort of the position that the Center for Extended Learning is coming from. Just as well, there's some probably helpful information for folks regarding item 1.3 and 1.4 with return to campus and sort of some of the barriers that are impacting international students. And I will say that my AVP Co-op Intersperiential Affairs is currently working to address earlier concerns from the previous GM regarding professional development courses. So essentially, we're trying to make students have, I guess, a bigger voice when it comes to sort of how those courses are designed, and that a working group be created that's sort of responsible for providing that feedback and giving it that student perspective, because it seems to be the case that that hasn't historically been there. So I can't promise anything, but thus far it looks like CEE has been quite receptive to this ask, and we're hoping to get something in the works for fall going forward. But again, no promises, but I'm really hopeful for that. And then anything else, I open to questions if you'd like me to speak more about a particular item.
Seeing none, thank you, Steph, for your report. And we will go to the report of the Vice President, Operations and Finance. Oh, sorry, Vincent. Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, I did have one question. When you're talking about mandatory vaccinations for living in residence / attending classes, still seems to be something the university doesn't want to touch. When you say that, do you mean like the university has said we're not going to require vaccinations, or is this just something that the university is like still waffling on and hasn't made a decision?
So I'll say that when initial questions about this sort of came about, there was a lot of hesitation from the university or universities in general, just because like, especially if you watch like news reports and whatnot, there's discussion about it possibly, I guess, like infringing on people's sort of independent rights, and who like there's going to be cases where people aren't going to be able to get vaccinated. And some institutions have decided to sort of move forward with mandatory vaccinations for living in residence or classes. But it seems like the university does not want to act on that until they see sort of more universities sort of taking that thing. They're also sort of mindful that like there's going to be barriers. The general thing is that like there doesn't seem to be any interest in acting on that for now. They seem to think that recommending that people are vaccinated, maintaining social distancing, masks, things like that, will be adequate.
So in summary, they've decided they're not requiring vaccinations.
For the time being, yes, and it seems like going forward, and I'll notify council if it seems to be the case that they're wavering from that position, but thus far it seems as if they are quite content to take the position that they have now.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, everyone. Cannon.
Just a quick follow-up on that. Does the university have any plans for people who are immunocompromised and thus they themselves can't take a vaccine? And then if there is a good number of people on campus who can't take the vaccine, it's not safe for those people to come back to campus. Has the university considered those things in their decision?
I'll say yes, the university is well aware that certain people aren't going to, I guess, immediately return to campus, which is why they're keeping a lot of sort of the online options. I see what you're pointing to, though, with regards with having mandatory vaccinations could potentially reduce the risk for folks who can't be vaccinated. I haven't had a specific conversation with that with the university, so I don't want to necessarily put words in their mouth, but you're right in that that is a potential gap there. Again, I think there's sort of plans to keep social distancing and masks and other things along the lines of that. Makes me presume that like that is the way in which they want to protect immunocompromised students who might have to be on campus. But I will poke more about that question with the university if you'd like.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. So having exhausted the speaking list for the VP Education report, we will go to the report of the Vice President, Operations and Finance.
Thank you so much. So I don't have a huge amount to add to my report. I want to highlight a couple of things, though, that I think are important takeaways that I imagine your constituents are rather interested in. Number one, UPass amending agreement has been signed for the fall. We are bringing UPass back for the fall, which is very, very exciting. It is going to be charged to every student on their Quest bill, but students that are not within the region of Waterloo will be able to, in a period at the start of the fall term, submit documents that show that they are not within the region, and they'll be refunded the fee through Quest. So this way we're able to have the best of both worlds, supply the plan to people that can access it, but not unduly charge people that can't. Another report on the sort of process to onboard part-time students onto our health plan, the same mechanism as full-time students. The Health Plan Oversight Committee, which sort of manages enrollment and coverage of our plan, has met and decided to consent to that plan. So Student Care is working with us and working with UW Finance to make that happen, and it should be happening for the fall. Finally, mechanism of adding PEP, which is post-exposure, a word I don't know how to pronounce, which is a medication to help reduce the chance of HIV contraction after exposure, is something that we have added now to our health plan. Will be added for the fall once everything all the kinks are sorted out. Yeah, that is also a very exciting thing that we are adding. Other than that, there's not a huge amount to say that hasn't already been said or otherwise available in my report. And I'll take any questions now.
Go ahead, Edward.
Hi, I had a question about the student care refund thing that was being advertised for international students.
Oh yeah, sure.
Yeah, I guess my question is, why was that announced so suddenly and the period so short for refunds?
So I guess I'll start with the period size. The period was set and determined by student care. It's being run countrywide at student care schools. So it's student care that set the period, and that was their what we had to work with. In terms of when it was announced and when it was advertised, that was unfortunate on our part, I suppose, that we only ended up getting advertising out at that time, just based on like comms and internal capacity and such. So that is unfortunate, but yeah, that is the sort of status of that.
Can I follow up to that, Ben?
Of course.
All right. Is there an email going out to international students or students at large to talk about that, or is that just going to be relying on our social media channels?
I believe there's an email going out. I have to double check the comms plan. Sorry, I'll double check on that one and see if I can get back to you on that.
Yeah, thank you. It just seems like important information, like very important information.
Thanks, Edward. Seeing no further questions for unless Matt has a breakthrough, I guess you can get back to us and we will move on for the sake of time to the Vice President Student Life Report.
Hello, I think that basically everything you need to know is in my report. I'll go through a couple highlights. I've been beginning the next steps of some components of the services review with IC and CLAC. So that's looking at end of term documents for some more services, and that's what we'll be doing throughout this term. And also on the services review front, I've begun basically drawing up an implementation plan for recommendations from the report that we passed last meeting, I think. Also, I guess just a general reminder to counselors and at-large members on committees to attend meetings for committees that you committed to, and if you can't, to alert the committee chair, because it is difficult to get things done at committees if we can't meet quorum or if we can't get in touch with you. Otherwise, most of what I've been up to has been a lot of external connections related to wellness, so that's both with campus wellness departments as well as directly with the associate provost students related to campus wellness. I've been working with staff for VP Ed on other wellness related things, and we are in the process of setting up a meeting to connect with police services as well. So that's the first time that we're aware of where we'd like to really build a working relationship there. So if there's anything you'd like us to keep in mind, feel free to send an email. And other than that, Matthew and I have been beginning the steps to figuring out an implementation plan for some sort of financial support mechanism for students who want to volunteer but currently are constrained by financial need. Happy to take any questions.
Edward?
Yeah, I had a question related to the committees. I know you brought up the beginning of your report, of this whole report, but I'm also curious, at what point do we start recalling members and re-electing people from council to those committees? Do we have kind of a date set for that?
Yeah, so IEC's been okay. CLAC has, we actually, since I wrote this report, we were able to meet once. There is currently one member who is at risk for removal, so they'll be contacted to have them let know. And if they, I guess, like fulfill the risk, then I'll be coming to council to ask for re-election to that seat. And otherwise, the current members will be staying on until further notice. It's in the committee procedures, though.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Yeah, it's, I think, Council Procedure 10. I know my numbers. So seeing no further questions for the Vice President's Student Life, we will go to the report of the Board of Directors.
Good morning, everybody.
I don't think I have anything to add in addition to the written report that I provided, but happy to take any questions, comments, fun dances, whatever you'd like to say at this time. Thanks.
I should provide clarity. No fun allowed at council. Just kidding. Sorry. Seeing no questions. Oh, Catherine, did you have a comment?
I'm sorry. Can Abby even see if we dance?
I can actually see a few people if you're dancing. So yeah, if you're sending me a fun dance, I hopefully can see it. Thanks, Catherine.
All right, thanks everyone. So next are representative reports. First is the report of the Arts Caucus.
Hi. I don't really think we have any. I wasn't here at the last meeting because I wasn't feeling well, so I'm not sure what the update was then. But we're starting a new Instagram page, and we're just working on getting like actual posts on the page that are useful for students before we start promoting it. But once we do, we'll let you guys know what that information is, and if you could promote it, that would be great. Thank you.
Thanks, Rebecca. I will also let our marketing staff know about that because I'm sure they would love the opportunity to be able to sort of promote council caucus stuff as well.
Yeah, sure.
All right. So if there are no questions for the Arts Caucus, we will go to engineering.
Yeah, Edward here for engineering. The counselors have been staying in touch with the NSOC meetings, and I've been running semi-regular office hours in their Discord and getting some feedback from constituents, helping some people who want to run in the by-election. We have a good amount of contested positions for the by-election, so that's exciting. The other thing is we've done some work with a student who put out a survey on Co-op International students, and I'll be bringing that up later today in the meeting on that discussion for Co-op International students. So look forward to that. That was put together from a student, Bota, who did on their own initiative, and very excited to share that with you all. But yeah, if any other members of the Engineering Caucus have updates.
Thank you, Edward. Seeing no other takers or no questions and no comments, we will go to the report of the Environment Caucus.
Hi, everyone. This is Jenna, the Environment Student Society president. Similar to my last report, we're currently working on our return to campus plan for our student society spaces. We haven't made much progress on that just because the university staff, like the safety office and plant ops, haven't given us much information, and they're advising that we hold off as late as possible to make the plan as the situation evolves. And then we're also currently applying to our faculty's endowment fund to get financial support to reopen our student coffee and donut shop because we are going to be required to have a significant amount of personal protective equipment in order to open it. And we're not in the financial situation right now to support that ourselves. So those are the two biggest things that our student society is focusing on right now.
Thanks, Jenna. Seeing no questions for environment, we will move on to the Health Caucus.
Hi, this is Marie from the Health Caucus. First, I want to apologize for being absent at the first two meetings. Unfortunately, work hours were not able to be changed, but we are going through with our department name changes. I believe there's another one in talks right now to change the name of the Department of Kinesiology. And I'll pass it off to the awesome president to see if she has anything to add.
Thanks, Marie. I guess if Serena, if you are talking, we can't hear you, but
Hi, sorry, I'm just sorry. Can you guys hear me?
yes, now we can.
Sorry, I just drove my roommate to get vaccinated, so I'm waiting outside with her, and there's like a lot of cars. We're trying to find an area where there's not too many cars. Pretty much Austin's update right now is that we are also kind of looking towards reopening our lounge, and we're trying to see if we're in the right financial standing to provide the PPE equipment. And if not, we will be most likely doing an application for our endowment fund as well. We're still working the kinks out of that. Other than that, we aren't really doing much. We are working on kind of a back to school, return to campus plan, just in case people would like to access our lounge. But other than that, we have very minimal going on. We do have an opening. We did begin our more like an anti-racism panel going on, which has been getting really good attention and positivity. So we're hoping to expand that away from just the recreation department and opening it to the entire faculty. And we're in talks with the deans for that as well. But that's pretty much all Austin has going on right now.
Thanks, Serena. So before we move on to Math Caucus, I guess I'll let Matthew answer Edward's question from earlier regarding the student care refund period for international students.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. I was just about to type it up, but that's okay. So I looked over the comms plan, and it does not include an email as of right now. I'll inquire with them as to why tomorrow, and if possible, put one in there to come out soon. If I had to hazard a guess as to why, I would think maybe there's limits on how often that we're able to send these things from registrar's office right now, but I'm not sure, to be honest with you.
Thanks, Matthew. Okay, now we will go to Math Caucus. Vincent, go ahead.
So for math, we're having our MathSox having our general election. Nominations are now. We also have a journal meeting coming up. Also been talking with some university administrators about PD. Some of you might have heard that the university counts, I guess, PDE students as like enrolled while they're on co-op to, I guess, get government subsidies for having enrolled students. I heard from someone in the, I think it was the IAP office, that because the university is, far past, I guess, the enrollment cap, that we're actually not bringing in any money from that. Like we're not getting any grant money because we're already past the enrollment cap. So if you've heard before that PD brings in money and is able to, I guess, decrease costs for students that way, it looks like if that was ever true, it's no longer true.
Thanks, Vincent. Yeah, I guess more you know. I was not aware of that. To Vicky, yes, you can be excused. Then the next is Cannon.
Some updates from my side. Like I've been working with a lot of folks in the dean's office to look into the USRA pay for math. Currently, the pay literally goes to about $14.50 an hour for research, which is not a lot of money for marginalized students to actually be able to do research, pay their bills and their tuition on the same time. So we're looking into seeing if we can increase that funding there. Another focus that has been going on is recognizing leadership in the faculty, both on student side and employee side, and how we can make sure people are still interested in volunteering their time outside their academics. And these are going to be some long-term discussions happening in the faculty, but hopefully some good things kind of come out of it.
Thanks, Cannon. Vincent.
I guess just to add some clarity to what Cannon said, as someone who's done a USRA before, I think the standard pay for USRA is like $10,000. It's paid in like a stipend, not hourly or anything like that. And I think the money, a lot of it comes from government funding.
Thanks, Vincent. So seeing no questions for the Math Caucus, we will go to the report of science.
Hi, I'm Manaswi, and there isn't too much of an update from science, but recently the grad boxes were picked up and they're going to be shipped out soon. And additionally, the Science Society has been in conversation with a couple of businesses in Ontario to provide discounts for the students. And some of these collaborations include Marble Slab and Meat Fresh, and some others are being reached out to right now. Yeah, that's pretty much it for now.
Thanks, Manaswi. One thing I will say is there are a lot of vacancies in Science Caucus, so maybe if I could ask you to tap some friends on the shoulder, or to either to run or to nominate people, because I think there are some candidates in need of nominations to get on the ballot for tomorrow, actually, and hopefully we can have a competitive election.
Right. Yeah, I actually have been doing that, not exactly on a social media scale, but I have been shoulder tapping a few people. So yeah, I should have mentioned that too. Thanks for reminding me.
No, thank you. That's good to hear. And I guess that also applies for engineering and health and the college campuses that have vacancies. I can't recall all of them, but awesome. Which takes us to the report of Cambridge. And we'll note for the record that that Vicky has returned. And it appears we do not have a Cambridge representative here to report to us, so we will move on to Kitchener. It appears we do not have a representative from Kitchener, lest they be muted. So we will move to the report of Stratford. Ditto, and St. Jerome's next. Okay, no representative from St. Jerome's, so we will go to Renison.
Hi everyone, it's Vicky here. I don't have much to say except what I'm going to bring up later in council. I am running for Renison councillor, but having extremely hard time finding nomination due to the fact that they have been co-registered with Renison. But I'm trying my best. But other than that, I don't have anything to report except the thing that the discussion topic I have put later, as that will take more time.
Thanks, Vicky. All right, that concludes the caucus representative reports, rather, which brings us to the report of officers. I have nothing to report for speaker report. So, Cannon, do you have anything you would like to bring up?
I'll just say at the next council meeting, I will be looking at the attendance sheet over the last 3 meetings and seeing if anyone is up for removal, and follow the necessary procedures about letting them know if there are any cases like that. Secondly, apologizes for the small errors in this agenda. It was getting pretty late when I sent it out. Hopefully it won't happen again. And as always, I'm here if anyone needs any help with creating any motions for future meetings. And also, sorry, does everyone have access to the council teams? If not, just type it in, just message me personally or email the speaker and we'll figure that out for you, because that's where I'm kind of going to add all the agenda items separately in a folder outside of just sending the agenda as an email too. Thanks.
Thanks, Cannon. Yeah, so I guess if anybody had like technical difficulties accessing the minutes, for example, for this meeting, and I guess all the attachments actually go into a folder on the Council Teams files. Yeah, get in touch with us somehow and we will figure it out. Which brings us to the report of the Secretary. Matthew or Connor, if you'd like to give an update.
I'm not sure if Connor has anything to say. I don't have too much to chime in as myself.
Nothing to report on my end.
Excellent. Then we will move to the standing committees or commission reports, of which there are none. So we will move to general orders. First general order is a first reading of online proctoring technology policy, which is in Appendix B. A motion submitted by Councillor Macri. Be it resolved that Council accepts the first reading of the draft online proctoring technology policy as presented in Appendix. So we will take Vincent as the mover. Is there a second to the motion?
I just wanted to note that Vicky had something to say. I don't know if that was for 3.5 or 4.1.
Pardon me. Thank you for catching that, Connor. I apologize. Vicky, please go ahead and then we'll come back to this motion.
I guess just now, since the accessibility report has been posted on the WUSA website and all WUSA socials, please share it with your constituents to bring out if they have any feedback they want to, I guess, further add or maybe some stuff, just to keep on showing it and seeing if there's any other areas that I couldn't identify with doing the research I did. That's all.
Thanks, Vicky. And apologies again. So that for the minutes, that was Serena, awesome president. Yeah, apologies, Vicky, for skipping you there. So now we are back at the first reading of online proctoring technology policy. Motion moved by Councillor Macri and seconded by Harleen Vandal. And Vincent, go ahead.
Yeah, so this policy builds on a previous stance that was passed in the June 2020 council meeting. This policy went through reading at EAC. I took some feedback from there to make the current version. Policies there in the appendix attachments. Take any questions.
Thanks, Vincent. Connor, just for your sake, Vincent moved the motion, not me. I don't know if that's what you meant by Easton first, but okay, Edward, thank you.
First off, thank you, Vincent, and whoever else is involved in the policy for writing this out. It looks very well written. I have a few concerns to going through it, but I want to see them addressed first or by a response, kind of see if there's an explanation. So my first one is doing with section 2J, regarding that students should be consulted and given the chance to be directly involved with the RFP process. I'm uncertain if this is a feasible or reasonable ask, considering that that is not even typically involving, like that is well beyond the level of students at the moment.
Can I direct response or?
Yeah.
It'd be easier if I answer his concerns like as they come instead of all at once.
Yeah, I was going to ask if Edward, if that is amenable to you, then we can do it that way.
Sure.
Okay.
So it says to two things. One, like, yeah, I thought this when I was writing this, I did kind of think this might be a bit of a big ask, but given all of our advocacy policies say within discretion, ability to execute, that kind of stuff for the VP Ed, I feel like there's still value in putting in like what we ideally want and allowing the VP Ed to prioritize accordingly. Regardless of that, though, I've actually been told by staff that the university is willing to do this. So yeah, it is feasible. They've said that they're planning to do this and involve students from all faculties in these consultations.
Sorry, Ben, I'm just going to interrupt. Just for the speakers, Secretary's note, Austin President Serena returned at 11:29 a.m.
Thank you, Cannon. So then next is Edward again with his enumerated concerns, I guess.
Okay. Right. So my next enumerated concern, as it was put, kind of goes on to, what was I going to say? 3C. I was concerned that proctoring software does not provide students with an easy method of asking course staff for clarification on their exam. I'm wondering if that's a valid concern to put in the context of proctoring software, because that's not its main purpose. So it feels weird to be criticizing them on that basis.
Yeah, so one of the things that was mentioned during the EAC meeting where we talked about this policy is that there's more than one part to proctoring. Usually we think of it as just someone watching you to make sure you're not cheating on your exam. But if you think about like when you're in an exam room, like a traditional physical exam room, one of the other things that proctors are there for is to clarify questions. Like maybe there's a mistake or some weird wording that doesn't make sense, and you have the ability to ask for clarification. The proctor will decide whether or not it's something that you should know and need to figure out for yourself, or if there is a mistake on the exam and the wording. Since with things like ProctorU, the people who are watching you are not university employees, they're not core staff, they're unable to answer those questions that you need to have to be able to like write a fair exam. Like if there's a mistake on the exam, there's no one to ask for clarification about that. And when you're using like something like ProctorU as opposed to like your prof observing you on Zoom, there's no way to be able to ask for clarification in that way.
There is a direct response from Cannon.
I was just gonna say, well, this is a fair reason, but at the same time, like if you're writing an exam on a co-op in another designated center, you can't ask these questions there either. So I don't think it's just an issue with proctoring. It's just an issue when you're not on campus at an exam. So it doesn't really make sense to be there.
Thanks, Cannon. I'll let Edward speak first.
Yeah, I also want to add on to what Cannon said, that even on campus, students who are writing the exam not in main exam rooms have limited access to the prof. So it is kind of an overall concern there as well. For example, with accessibility services.
Okay, so I don't think that issues, with existing exam proctoring methods are reasons to like perpetuate and continue having those issues. Just because the issue exists somewhere else doesn't mean we should replicate that problem in other places. And in the case of this, I think one of the people having proctors outside of university settings, one of the reasons for the university is looking at this technology is for students who are in like far off locations where they might not have easy access to an exam center. I would hope that in cases like that, rather than using software like this, the university would at least look at having like core staff observe the students on Zoom, which would still Zoom, Teams, whatever, would just still allow them to address these issues. I don't think that there's a problem here is a reason to continue having the problem in other places as well, we should try and make the exam experience better and more fair for students, not trying to like replicate inequities and unfairnesses all over the place.
Thanks. So Edward can continue.
Yep. Heading up onto my second last concern, back down in section 4H, it mentions that students are involved, or it's recommended that students are involved and have decision-making power in the approval of any proctoring software. And I'm unclear to this wording as, do students have the final say in this situation, or do they have significant input? Like, I'm wondering, do they have like the majority vote to decide here, or is this just a decision voting state?
So again, this was just more, I guess, related to the RFP thing from before, having students give a, have a voice there. Basically just, the students, what I meant with this is that students shouldn't just like be a bunch of non-voting members on some committee or something like this. Their opinion should, be given weight, and their thoughts on the issue should actually matter. And again, as to the ability, like to the length to which this goes, I think that again falls under, how our advocacy policies are executed to, and the discretion and in terms of like the extent to which we're actually able to execute.
There's a point of inquiry from Connor.
So just to clarify, it's more of like a degree of tokenism rather than like actual having decision-making authority.
I mean, for students to have some decision-making authority, whether it's like a majority of votes on the committee or a significant number, is again, as we are able to advocate for successfully. I don't think it's helpful to put we should have a minority of votes and then our influence might not matter. And I don't think it's helpful to write we should have a majority of votes and then not be able to get that. That's why I wrote it this way. So we're able to, get decision-making power as we're able to advocate for.
A direct response from Steph.
Yeah, I guess just some, important information to sort of contextualize that. So in a lot of cases where there's sort of student input or student consideration on things, what usually happens is that you have a core group of administrators be in charge of making the final decision, but then you have like a group basically underneath them providing sort of their perspectives. So like in those cases, theoretically, we could be like railroaded by who the ultimate decision makers are, because they're not required to act on the advice of sort of the committee that they consult with. But generally, it is in their best interest to actually engage in meaningful consultation and take this into consideration. I will say that that seems to be the plan going forward for what we were told that they were going to do for the for, I guess, soliciting new sort of proctorware software, who they would decide if they would continue on the program. It's more of a consultation piece, but that is fairly common across the university for a variety of things, mostly because generally administrators will sort of respect that feedback, and also because there are certain nuances or whatnot that sort of lead I guess people to believe that like the decision maker should have like the final say in it.
Thanks, Steph. Sorry, we go back to Edward. I will say maybe this was not the smartest idea to split up your speaking turn like this, Edward, so I apologize. Probably won't do this in the future.
That's okay. All right, and my last enumerated point, but I have one general point afterwards, is that the 4I that the University of Waterloo creates a policy to protect the privacy of students that goes far beyond the minimum legal requirements is a very vague recommendation, considering the fact that the university does have an information policy, and it, I guess in a way, it's more than the bare minimum, but is that like what do we actually want from this? It is kind of a nebulous ask that I think is hard to advocate on.
So how do I put this? So it's currently in Ontario or in Canada, we don't have particularly strong privacy protection laws, and in Ontario, like in the University of Waterloo is only governed by Ontario's privacy laws, which are even weaker than Canada's privacy laws. The university doesn't really have any strict legal privacy requirements that they need to follow. And this is, I guess, more of a long-term goal that this is something we believe the university should work on. Like specifically what would be in this policy, I think, is far beyond the scope of this motion, other than the belief that we need stronger privacy protections for students and they need to be, written down, required to be followed and enforced.
Thanks,
and
Vincent.
it kind of ties into the points in, I guess, 5A and B that we should also do government advocacy to protect the privacy rights of students.
Thanks, Vincent. Brings us back to Edward. Yeah.
Yeah, and my last concern is I appreciate the the references and the justifications for all the points in the policy. I am a little concerned that in some places we are a bit prejudicial. I can't use languages, but you know the word, prejudiced against proctoring software in a way that seems unfair or biased, like saying it's ineffective security steer, does little to uphold academic integrity, or kind of saying a simple web search can pull up many tutorials on how to bypass the softwares and the teaching technology. I feel like it detracts partially from the really good concrete points that are made throughout the policy. So maybe just tidying up the wording here and there in later revisions. I appreciate the strong feelings we have towards proctoring software, but I also think we can make this policy effective without having to resort to emotional language sometimes.
So I guess the reason I put that in is proctoring software. One of my concerns with it is that if so I'm sure you're aware that the way a professor will write an open book exam is different from the way they'll write a closed book exam. My concern is that if professors think the exam is closed book, but it's very easy for students to cheat and treat it as an open book exam, then it's going to do more harm to academic integrity than it's going to help. If professors think that this software works and is effective and you can't bypass it, which is false because you can Google how to cheat on ProctorU and get lots of hits, then professors are probably not going to do much investigation into actually seeing if people were cheating, and people will probably be more likely to get away with cheating. And personally, I'm more concerned with people cheating and getting away with it than with people cheating and getting caught. If people cheat and get caught, I think that that's fine. We have ways of dealing with that with Policy 71. But if people are getting away with cheating, the issue with cheating is it devalues the degrees from the institution if people are able to cheat their way through university. And if people are getting caught, that's not a problem. But if people are getting away with cheating, that is a problem. And so one of my concerns is that since the software, we don't really know it does work. There's lots of ways of cheating. Even if the software was perfect, that it couldn't catch. If someone writes the exam in the morning and someone else writes it in the afternoon, and before that, your friend who wrote it in the morning texts you all the questions, there's no way that the software will detect that. And it really is going to create a false sense of security, and it could very well do more harm to academic integrity than good. And that's really my concern there, that the university is assuming the software works and upholds academic integrity, and they haven't really presented anything I've seen that backs that up.
Direct response from Edward.
Yeah, and I think your point in 3B that says that marketing to professors as effective will get them false sense of security, I think that's, you have good ways of backing those points. I agree with you on the whole about those points. I'm just suggesting the language overall be formatted towards those justified substantive points rather than appealing to emotional language and kind of buzzwordy ones whenever possible.
If you want, we can talk more offline about the specific wording.
Sure.
Yeah, I will. That would be a good idea. And Steph has a direct response. Or a new point, rather, sorry.
Yeah. So hopefully this motion is fine.
I don't know if we've lost you,
Sorry.
Steph.
Hi. Sorry, can you hear me?
Yep.
Sorry, I just blanked out while I was thinking. Yeah, so basically I typed a motion in the chat saying, be it further resolved that council task EAC with revising the policy such that it clarifies that use of proctoring software as an optional program that enables students who would otherwise be required to pay to source and pay for their own invigilation to have an alternative way to meet the individual requirements is permissible. I feel like that was grammatically weird, but essentially what I'm getting at here is if you look at my report, you'll see that the direction in which the Center for Extended Learning is hoping to go in is to basically provide this as an to go in the direction where proctoring software is sort of this option that students who would otherwise need to source and pay for their own invigilation, which happens when for certain courses, online courses, you'll have like an in-person exam requirement. And if you don't live a certain proximity to the university, you either have to find your own proctoring center, sort of register, like come all the way into the university and notify them that you're going to be traveling in such a way to do that, or you need to like hire your own proctor. So that can be a huge hassle for a lot of students, especially when they live in sort of remote areas, which is the original reason why CEL was trying to explore this. So I just want to make sure that we sort of clarify our stance in that. I'm honestly fine either way, whether we go to support this or not. Someone can like if we vote down this motion, essentially I'm going to read it as we completely don't want proctoring software, even in this case.
Thanks.
So I need like I need a verdict from council to inform whether or not we think that this is a permissible way to use proctoring software, or if it's not, then yeah.
Thanks, Steph. So there is a motion to amend the motion to include the clause, be it further resolved that council task EAC with revising the policy such that it clarifies that use of proctoring software as an optional program that enables students who would otherwise be required to source and pay for their own invigilation to have an alternative way to meet the invigilation requirement is permissible. Is there a second to the motion moved by Vice President? Okay. So Steph moved, Cannon seconds the motion to amend. Steph, you kind of took your speaking turn before we considered the motion and seconded it and so on, which is fine. It doesn't really make a functional difference. So if you have nothing further you would like to add, Steph, we will take Vincent as a response to the motion, or speaking to the motion to amend.
Yeah, so I think in an earlier draft that Steph saw, I think I did have it say that we should have no proctoring software in any situation. She brought up this issue with me, and I thought I already introduced language to this effect. I think you'll see in 4C, I have the University of Waterloo immediately discontinue the use of proctoring software as the default option in online courses. I think that should address her concerns there. I'd also like to say that in the case of people in like remote communities where it's hard to get a human proctor, one, this policy doesn't say anything about forbidding core staff from proctoring via like Zoom or Teams or something like that. As I mentioned before, I think that would be acceptable. And another thing is, even both with proctoring software or like with Zoom Teams, it still needs a student to have like a stable, reliable, somewhat fast internet connection. And if the issue is with people in like remote communities, I would expect a good chunk of those don't have that reliable internet connection. So I'm not sure how much this will actually help. If it's just people in remote communities that happen to have fast internet, I'm not an infrastructure expert. I'm not sure how much of that there is.
Steph?
Yeah, so like I know we've had this conversation before, and I know that you've tried to address it, but I would prefer that it be more clear in the policy, because future VP educations or other folks like will likely not have access to you as a resource to basically explain your intention behind it. So I want to make sure that it's very explicit, because the way in which it currently reads there's a little bit of uncertainty there. And I also want, by introducing this motion, my major motivation was to get a sense from council how they felt about this particular use of proctoring software, whether or not our ask to sort of not have any proctoring software should also eliminate sort of this item on the table, or whether or not we're saying that this item in the table is probably okay. And I would say that with your concerns with regards to, like, I guess my question is, like, if you have the choice of students being required to find their own invigilators and paying for that, or this, and there's no third option on the table, like, which we would take. I would say that a lot of the concerns that you have with how final exams are facilitated and written would probably have a better place in its own policy as opposed to the proctoring software one, because we never know if we're actually able to get sort of those third or alternative options. So I want to basically provide guidance for future VP eds when they're placed in a situation, if it's this or nothing, to be empowered and have sort of the backing of council to make that decision.
Cannon.
I was just going to point out, Vincent, it's not just the people in rural areas. It could be people in other countries who are taking online courses, and not every country has internet issues.
Vincent?
Oh yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's not just people in like rural communities. There are many places where people might not have reliable internet. I agree with Ken. If I respond to Steph, I guess it sort of like, yeah, I guess if we were to have this choice between only these two options, but it kind of feels a bit like a false dichotomy, since I think currently professors are required to offer an alternative to proctoring software. And as long as that's the case, I don't see why it would be like this or the other thing. But I guess if we could somehow write it in a way that's like, this is preferable to this, is preferable to this, is preferable to this. Like I think like Zoom or Teams proctoring is preferable to like ProctorU proctoring, which might be preferable to students having to like take a plane to the like nearest city to have a human proctor. But like I don't know, like is your like the intention of this, like that we could have like this preferred to this for your amendment?
I feel like we're getting a little bit too much into the weeds with this thing. Essentially, what I'm saying, what I'm asking is council okay with proctoring software being an optional thing that is created with the specific intent of resolving this problem? If that is something that when Center for Extended Learning says, hey, we're looking into this, we want to move forward with this, that I'm able to say, yes, you can go do that. Students support that. And then in terms of like, say, arguing, well, like we shouldn't use this most of the time or whatnot, like that can come later. But I just want to know in that circumstance, like when I'm engaging with CL, what to tell them. If I'm going to put my foot down and be like, nope, we don't want to see any proctoring software whatsoever. If that's the case, or if we're going to be a little bit more lenient with it. So again, a lot of this can be handled like within EAC specifically, but I'm just like with that question, I would like comments and direction from council, and if anyone else can speak to their perspective on this, I would very much appreciate it. I'm more or less trying to get guidance and feedback from the rest of council. Vincent, I know you care about this immensely, but yeah.
Shannon?
Man, I think we've had this discussion enough. I move to call the question.
Is there a second to call the question? Vicky seconds to call the question. So calling the question requires 2/3 vote in the affirmative. If it passes, then we proceed immediately to a vote on the amendment. Then we will return to the main motion. So this will require us to tabulate votes of the members present. So I might need some logistical help, Cannon.
We can just do, I will type it in the chat and then reactions again.
Okay, that works. So Cannon, if you type like affirmative, negative, or whatever, like in favor, opposed.
So thumbs up is in favor, if you can react to it. Angry face is abstaining, and sad face is against.
And if you are unable to access the chat, if you can indicate your vote out loud, and I'll note it, and we can add it like to the, we can tabulate it.
So it's thumbs up for approve, sad face for denied, and then what was the third one?
Angry for abstaining.
Okay, could we have that in the chat as well, just so?
Yeah, I'm typing it right now.
I will wait until 11:59 before we end the voting period, so that's a minute. For those who are unable to react, again, you can indicate your vote either orally or in the chat if you have access at all on the vote to call the question on the motion to amend. And it's 11:59. The motion has passed, exceeded the supermajority threshold. We are calling the question on the motion to amend. And now we proceed immediately to the vote on the motion to amend by adding the following text. Be it further resolved that Council task EAC with revising the policy such that it clarifies that the use of proctoring software as an optional program that enables students who would otherwise be required to source and pay for their own invigilation to have an alternative way to meet the invigilation requirement is permissible. So, does anybody oppose the motion to amend? Does anybody wish to abstain? Recognize Vincent's abstention.
Vincent's minute, like the recording doesn't have the chat. I'm just gonna read Vincent's comments because he wanted with, I think, with those.
Sure,
So
I'm going to finish. Well, so the motion will carry. The motion is amended, and then we can do that just so we don't interrupt voting. Canon, sorry. So we have amended the motion. I will note that there were that Vincent is noted in opposition to calling the question and noted in abstention for the motion to amend. Now we are back at the main motion. And so the main motion reads, be it resolved that Council accepts the first reading of the draft online proctoring technology policy as presented in appendix and the secondary amendment, which we just passed. So is there any comment or any discussion on the motion as amended? Hearing none, we will, Vincent, go ahead.
So with the amendment given, I was wondering if Council had any thoughts on, I guess, how to balance possible approval of the software in limited situations with potential reliability issues. Since this software proctoring since proctoring software has been known to have issues with students who are like visible minorities, or if you're wearing like religious headdress, sometimes their employees aren't properly trained on how to handle that. If Council has any advice to EAC on how to balance those equity issues with access for students who I guess have reliable internet but don't have access to human proctors, because I'm not really sure how to balance those two issues.
Thanks, Vincent. Wait a minute for any comment. If there are no, okay, Steph.
I am so sorry, everyone, that has evolved into this back and forth. And we'll probably take more of this conversation offline, but so the amendment, now with the amendment, it says as like an optional program. So like students are essentially making informed consent to use this sort of alternative option. So if a student has concerns about I guess like how this impacts them as like as an ethnic minority, then there are other routes that they can kind of take. I will emphasize the whole optional aspect of this, and I'm hoping that in sort of presenting this option to students, that they receive very clear information regarding the potential risks and whatnot involved.
Thanks, Steph. Seeing no, all right, direct response from Vincent.
And again, just to clarify with what Steph was saying, is Council okay if the risks of using the software are they might not let you write your exam if you're like wearing a hijab, or if the program thinks your skin is too dark? Is Council okay with that being one of the risks that we tell students who might be using the software?
Harleen? Oh, sorry, there's a direct response from Canon.
My opinion on that, like, I totally get that there are issues with these software, especially with minorities. But if someone's making an informed decision that these issues could arise, like that's the best case scenario. Like, if the option is they can either write an exam or they might have some issue with the online proctoring software, I think most people would be like, I guess I will use this online proctoring software.
Thanks, Canon. Harleen.
Hi. I had a question because I'm not hip with the policies. And I was wondering, so policy 71 is for if you feel an unfair decision has been reached when in a academic integrity case. Does it also apply to like if you feel an unfair proctoring decision was made where they're like, you cheated, and you're like, no, I didn't?
I guess my understanding is it's for petitions and grievances, which is like fairly like broad scoped. Like it covers a lot of particular issues, and this could be one of them. There's a direct response from Catherine.
Yeah, to the best of my understanding, if somebody just says like, you cheat, but we're not going to do anything about it, then there's nothing to grievance. But if you're accused of cheating, and then there's a penalty imposed of some sort, or like you get the letter that says, hey, you're in trouble, you can petition to have that overturned.
Thanks, Catherine. Steph.
Yeah, so the way in which like if you're accused of cheating or plagiarizing, the way that the process works is that you'll receive basically a letter saying you've been accused of cheating, in which case you're provided with like a slight overview of the evidence that they have against you, and you're able to sort of make a statement and provide evidence that you did not cheat, and then it would sort of be the decision of the admin to decide whether or not you have in fact cheated or not, and then what the punishment would be for that. In the case of proctoring software, let's say your skin is too dark, so it makes it look like you're not a real person, and thus it pings your video as suspicious. It pings the video such that the professor can go back in and watch that video and try to determine whether or not you cheated or not, which of course leads to, well, if it's mostly Black students who are being pinged, then, you know, white students who maybe are also doing like suspicious activity, if the software isn't picking that up, then they're less likely to be reported. But the whole thing, though, is that like the professor needs to be watching that video and have reason, like actual proof to believe that you were cheating. So if the entire video is pinged and, you know, that was what the professor was like, yeah, you've been cheating, you can basically just respond to that when you're accused being like, I did not cheat. Like, it might have just pinged me because I'm Black, is kind of the way in which that would work out. But yeah, you can, once a decision has been made, sort of do a petition or grievance, but there are other complications to that. But yeah, just so that you have a sense of how that sort of process works.
Thanks, Steph. Okay, so having exhausted the speaking order, we will take the main motion as amended to a vote. Does anybody oppose the motion? Does anybody wish to abstain? Hearing neither, it carries unanimously, and we have adopted for first reading the policy, or accepted for first reading the policy, and referred it to EAC with a bit of an interpretation on our belief on, I guess, relevant use. And Vincent wishes to be noted in favor. Then, so next is item 4.2, removal of campus response team as a WUSA service. Whereas WUSA will be fully transitioning the funding, housing, and supervision of the campus response team to wellness services as of September 2nd, 2021. And whereas Campus Wellness has committed to fully funding CRT through SSAC, the Student Services Advisory Committee, alongside providing administrative support, medical supervision, and space outside of the SLC. And whereas one acceptable reason for the removal of an existing service as per Council Procedure 26 is that the university has agreed to take over the mandate of the service, and it is the belief of WUSA Council and Board that the university can maintain the service at the same or higher standard. And whereas removing CRT as a service with WUSA is part of the process proposed in the final version of an MOU between WUSA and Wellness Services, then be it resolved that WUSA's Students' Council believes that the university can maintain CRT at the same or higher standard, and be it further resolved that Council Procedure 25, Federation Services Part C list of Federation Services is amended to remove item 5, Campus Response Team, submitted by Vice President Dong, who we will take to move. And Cannon seconds. So Catherine, go ahead.
Hello. Everything is basically in the motion text. We've been working on an arrangement for ages to basically have Campus Wellness take over CRT. And in general, because services are created to fulfill an identified unmet need that a service of WUSA can fill. The goal a lot of the times is to have that need either become irrelevant or have that need fulfilled by the university instead. And in this case, we have achieved an arrangement where that need can be fulfilled by the university, and this is, I guess, just some formality to allow our side of that to happen.
Vincent.
I guess I'd like to ask about how this moving us from under WUSA under the university would like affect like finances and like fees for students.
Sorry to interrupt, Vincent. I believe Harleen had speaking privileges before you.
I apologize for that.
And
yeah, I got that in the chat.
The second, Ben.
Pardon?
Vicky has a 2, I believe.
I think Vicky wanted to second the motion, and which I recognized you as having seconded. So apologies, folks. So we will go to Harleen first.
Thanks. I was just going to ask if this would impact the access that we have to CRT for our events. Because, for example, on the Society's event form, you can select to have them at your event. And I'm just wondering if it, like, if we can somehow try and get the university to not change that, or like, I believe it's free at the moment. So, yeah.
Yeah. As far as I can, as far as I can tell, CRT, to the best of my understanding, will be saying the same or increasing. We basically can't facilitate this if they would be decreasing the services that CRT would be providing. So as far as I'm aware, yes, everything will be okay. I also realized that I made a mistake in the motion. In the third whereas, it's per Council Procedure 25, not 26. Can I have that just like amended?
I suppose if it's friendly to you and to Cannon as the seconder, we can change that in the preamble.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks.
So next we go to Vincent.
Yeah, so how would this impact, I guess, the fees? I assume that campus response team, I'm guessing, is like under health and safety fee. I believe that's a mandatory fee. Would this change, would this change, like if the fee is optional or mandatory, would this change if it's in health and safety? Is it going to be some other fee now? Would this change the amount of the fee? Would this change if WUSA or the university is collecting this fee?
WUSA will no longer be collecting the fee for CRT. We are completely handing over funding. Funding will be coming from SSAC, which I believe is the Student Services Advisory Committee. Ben's nodding. And so obviously that's a student fee, so the money is coming from somewhere still, but it will be fully funded by the university. So we're kind of hands off there.
There's a direct response from Cannon.
Just a quick follow-up on that. So is that going to mean that there's going to be a equal amount of increase in the SSAC fee, or is the university just like taking money out of the current budget that they have? And my second question was, are they like still doing the same structure of coordinators getting paid on part-time basis that WUSA was doing, or is that going to change? Like, do we have any idea about that?
In terms of the first question, I don't feel like I can answer that fully right now. If you give me a couple minutes, I might be able to see if I can give you a clear answer. In terms of the second one, yes, the MOU states that the university will continue to hire coordinators as paid student part-time staff. So CRT will remain like with student leadership, but just on top of that, they're also going to be getting the type of support that WUSA just isn't capable of giving. They're going to have a full-time medical staff support, and they'll be directly under the, I think, Director of Health Services. So really, they're moving up in the world.
Direct response from Vincent.
And another part of my question that I think I might have missed is, would this change the like amount of the fee? Like, okay, one fee goes down by $5. Is it just another fee going up, making up 5? It's like one fee goes down by 5, another fee goes up by 5, or will like that other fee be going up by like some different amount than what the fee for this currently is?
Don't take this as like precisely what's happening, but my understanding is that most likely our fee will be going down because we're not budgeting for this anymore, and then SSAC will be going up by some indeterminate amount.
I guess I should clarify to the assembly that like this motion is not a motion to like alter fees. Like the WUSA fees have been approved and will be assessed at whatever levels, and it will ultimately go to the budget committee to determine where that
yes
found
I guess
money goes.
I guess
and likewise, sorry, Catherine. I believe it will fall under like campus wellness has a line item as a student service fee and an ancillary fee, funny enough. And like it's hard to say like directly how it like maps. Like it may be that the university is able to administer the program more efficiently or less efficiently. So it's kind of hard to say like I guess the proportionality of like how the fee would change based on where it's housed administratively.
Yeah, I guess I misspoke saying that this would cause our fee to go down. This would cause this budget line to go down, and then eventually fees may change accordingly, maybe.
Yeah, that's right. Steph.
Yeah, just on that note, I guess like where the like the savings aspects comes in, because I think it's unlikely that the WUSA fee would go down as a result of this, because the actual like amount per student is like probably a cent. Is that it would just mean that like we don't go as high the next time that we have to like increase the fee. And that like if we create like a new like service or whatnot, then there's money available to do that, and we might not need to like increase the fee in case of those things happening.
It's probably more accurate, yes. And I guess just to address the little thing Cannon said previously, the proposed change is that CRT be funded through an increase in the SSAC fee, as well as be supervised and supported through the health services, with the potential for hiring a full-time staff member to support CRT's needs.
Thanks, Catherine. So Cannon is next.
I was just going to small comment that I think we should not try to guess what would happen to the WUSA fee and leave it to BSC, I guess, to figure that out. as the people who deal with our budget items.
Thanks, Kenan. So having exhausted the speaking order for this item, we will take it to a vote, barring anybody getting in at the last second. Does anybody oppose the motion as presented? Does anybody wish to abstain? Hearing neither, it carries unanimously, and we have approved handing off a service.
Incredible. Thank you.
Congratulations. All right, that brings us to item 4.3, challenges facing international co-op students. I will read, I guess, the preamble here. International students face a unique set of issues when enrolled in a co-op program. Specific examples of these issues include co-op jobs that don't have funding or for hiring international students, jobs that require driver's licenses and housing. Recently, Boda Akhmediyeva, an engineering student, conducted a survey. Jay, if you could mute, please. I'm just getting feedback. Conducted a survey on challenges faced by international students in the engineering faculty, which will be shared at the meeting. The purpose of this discussion is to see what challenges co-op students in different faculties encounter and new opportunities for advocacy collaboration. Submitted by Councillor Yang. Would you like to speak to the item?
Yes, thank you, President Easton. So, like I said, an engineering student, BOTA, took upon themselves to create this survey. They got 50 respondents from undergraduates. So, I think sharing my screen would be a bit disruptive right now, but I can summarize the results of the survey. And the purpose of this discussion is I want to see what other concerns people from other faculties have heard from international students being in co-op, and see if there's anything we can do as WUSA to advocate for changes, or if there's any hidden needs or hidden concerns that we haven't really addressed up until now. So yeah, like I mentioned, one of the biggest things is with the SWPP, the Student Work Placement Program, is only eligible for Canadian citizens. However, a lot of co-op jobs rely on that for funding their co-op salaries. And the biggest challenge we're seeing here is with employers not recognizing that or not respecting international students' time when they realize that. So, you know, we have employers who aren't properly listing their jobs as SWPP funded on Water That Works. We have employers who are quite disrespectful once they realize that it's an international student and aren't eligible for that funding. It's difficult in Water That Works sometimes just to filter, and there's clarity lacking around the difference between Canadian citizenship required and must be eligible to work in Canada. Those are not clearly communicated to employers and students, and it's causing confusion all around, leading to disappointment and sense of kind of frustration from international students as they apply to these jobs just to get turned away. There's also the big question around how can international students prepare for co-op, because they're coming from a different background, don't have the same support structures once they arrive in the country. So the big thing that's always listed is cars. A lot of jobs in the engineering profession require a driving license or a personal vehicle to drive out to job sites or visit clients. And that's something that international students have a much more difficult time accessing those resources. Even something as simple as just learning to drive and getting that driver's license in Canada is much difficult to do as just someone living away from home, much more so if your family is in a different country altogether. And then, yeah, those are the two main things, but there's just generally a sense of frustration that international students are being placed at disadvantage and not receiving sufficient communication before arriving at the university to help prepare them or set their expectations so that they're not kind of shot down and dejected once they arrive and start applying.
Thanks, Edward. Vicky, wishes to speak.
Hi, Edward. So I feel like this could become a concern about what I'll be talking about after, because it kind of relates to other programs. And assume I know like a lot of the ELI students who are like BASE or EFAS, which are English like language requirements by the university, who have like a pre-offer. They probably also face similar issues, knowing that they come from different places like Asia, Ecuador, like South America, Central America, and possibly over in Europe. But I would be willing to, if need to, take this offline. Nothing like personal, it's just I would like to have more of a discussion about it, because then I can go relay it back to people, like the person who contacted me about this issue and my little speaking point. But that is all.
Thanks, Vicky. Any other comments on, I guess, faculty-specific concerns about co-op? Manaswi.
Hi, I want to thank Edward for bringing this up, and I wanted to speak a little bit more about SWPP. And University of Waterloo is the biggest employer in the co-op program offered at the university. However, as soon as the pandemic started and the SWPP was available, all of the jobs that are offered by the university itself were also funded by SWPP, for which reason the entire international population was immediately excluded from these university jobs. And I feel like that might be a good avenue to start advocating for helping international students at least get jobs from the university itself. And yeah.
Thanks. Next is Vincent.
I think another thing to notice, I've seen sometimes on like job postings on Waterloo Works, sometimes jobs will say like driver's license required, when what they really mean is you need to figure out a way to get to work. We're not going to like give you a bus or like a traveling stipend. And sometimes those employers really just mean like, yeah, if you can take the bus, that's fine. So I think another concern here is whether or not jobs and job requirements are being accurately labeled. Yeah.
Thanks, Vincent. Next is Jay.
Hi, can everyone hear me? My internet is so bad today.
Yep, sounds good.
Okay, I have another issue to bring up with the meeting, but this issue maybe is very hard to change. It's a little bit about the legal issue, the SIN number. Many international students, they never been to Canada, but to work in Canada, you have to have a valid SIN number, right? But because of the COVID, many students never been to Canada and they don't have the opportunity to apply for a SIN number. I heard from students, math students, that like she doesn't have a SIN number and she cannot apply for any job at Waterloo Work. Because if you want to work in Canada, you need to have a SIN number, and she doesn't have it right now. Another issue is that like sometimes when interviewers or employers know the students is not in Canada at the moment, they sometimes refuse to give an interview opportunity, because usually in resume or in cover letter, you will say your current location, current address or current phone number. If the employers see that like the cell number is a Chinese number, they will definitely not give you an interview. This is something maybe more serious about the human rights code, right? Our human rights code says we cannot judge one's citizenship or one's origin when finding a job. If this students, although he or she might not in Canada at the moment, but if the interviewer gave him or her an interview opportunity And in the interview, the employer might ask, "Are you going to come to Canada during the 4 months internship?" If it's a positive answer and the students can get an offer, I believe these students will come to Canada, no matter how expensive the flight ticket is or how inconvenient it is. In my interview, my employer asked me, "Are you going to stay in Waterloo or going back to Calgary during the summer?" I'm in the co-op term right now. I'm so afraid that like if I said I'm going to go back to Calgary, the employer won't give me an offer. So I just said like I will stay in Waterloo to avoid any biases about the locations. That's it. Just 2 points I want to bring out to the council.
Thank you, Jay. Edward has a direct response. And before you go, Edward, we'll note for the recording, I guess, that Mary Saburzma left at 12:28 p.m.
Yeah. I guess thanks to Vicky, Manaswi, Vincent, and Jay for bringing up their issues. I want to talk about some of the stuff Jay raised. Thank you for that issue to SIN numbers. That's a new one I hadn't heard before. That's something I think we can look into. And I definitely do agree with the whole perception behind employers who are prejudicing themselves against international students, whether knowingly or unknowingly, just because, either myths around it's more difficult to hire them, there's more loopholes to jump through, or they'll be in different time zones, it'll be difficult to work around them. And I think that's an area where we can do some advocacy with co-op to dispel that misinformation to employers and kind of clarify things for them so that they're not making those hiring decisions based on incorrect information. So thanks for that.
Thanks, Edward. Vincent.
I guess.
Actually, sorry, Vincent. I just saw that Jay had a direct response come in. Sorry to cut you off.
Okay,
We'll let Jay
thank
go
you.
and then back to you.
Sorry, I understand that like there might be some national security issue or data security issue if you are not working in Canada and using a like a company device that is, I know that is a risk. It's a huge risk. But as I said, if the interviewer can give an international student who are not in Canada at the moment, this student might have the opportunity to come to Canada because it's a valid reason of traveling at the moment. And then this student can physically in Canada and start working.
Thanks, Jay. Vincent.
I guess just listening to like the issues being addressed, I feel like, the issues being discussed, I feel like addressing these might take a bit longer than like a month or two. And I think we should probably be, with this looking, past the pandemic. I'm like wondering like which of these issues are just like kind of like temporary pandemic specific issues and which are more of, I guess, like long-standing problems for international students. Because I think those are the ones that we'd probably have more effectiveness addressing.
Thanks, Vincent. Harleen has a direct response.
In terms of when we're looking at permanent fixes, I definitely agree, but I do think it's important to keep in mind the struggles that students are facing right now because there's still going to be a few more terms where they're going to continue to face similar struggles as we're still working to get back to normal, I guess.
Thanks, Harleen. So next is Steph. You're muted if you.
Yeah, sorry, I was trying to figure out how to unmute myself right there. Yeah, so I just wanted to provide, I guess, some additional context around sort of government requirements and why certain things are the way that they are. The intention of me saying this isn't to say that things should be the way that they currently are, but basically talking about, I guess, some of the government restrictions or funding models that exist that sort of result in the system existing the way that it does now. So the first point I wanted to address was something Jay mentioned earlier with regards to companies' preferences to have students working out of Canada. So essentially, it's kind of a requirement by the federal government, actually. It boils down to, I guess, sort of insurance and liability. So it's one of those barriers in which, like, in order to like have a student working for your company, in some cases, like, you do actually require them to be in Canada, or else like the law gets very messy around those areas. And like, you as a company, like, if something happens to that student, then you are held liable in not so great a way, but also like co-op itself is held liable, and that creates its own problems. I can probably drop like more specific information for counselors a bit later in like a follow-up email. And then the other thing I wanted to add is that a lot of the jobs that are currently restricted to domestic students, or yeah, so it's because of like how those programs get funding. Like, there's money specifically set aside for like Canadian citizens, permanent residents, or refugees. And obviously we can argue for that to be changed. But you will have to deal with the sort of the philosophy behind that, where it's kind of like, well, you know, Canadian, like, they're Canadians, they pay taxes, like, we want to provide job opportunities and whatnot for Canadians. So, I mean, we can either argue to change that specifically and get the government to invest for jobs specifically for international students, arguing that like they also pay employment taxes. Or the alternative is to say, when we're looking for that like co-ops should take into consideration what jobs are available to only domestic students and what jobs are available to international students. And when they're trying to figure out if there's enough jobs for everyone, to look at international students as their own distinct cohort.
Thanks, Steph. Jay is next.
Yeah, like, I'm not saying that I have to give students and understand that, like, for students who are not in Canada, working for a Canadian company, there's some like national security issue or data security issue. But what I'm trying to say is that, like, if the employer gives the students an opportunity, even an interview opportunity, and the students can come to Canada and work in Canada for a Canadian government is fine, right? And in terms of like government subsidies, to my knowledge, that like government subsidies everyone, no matter you're international student, Canadian citizens, PRs or protected persons, they can all get like 25% to 30% salary subsidies for hiring a co-op student. That is my point.
Thanks, Jay. There's a direct response from Vincent.
So a couple things. I don't know like every government funding program that exists for co-op students, but I'm pretty sure some of them are like be restricted to citizens or permanent residents. Maybe not all of them, but I'm pretty sure there are at least some. Another issue that we would need to think of is, I guess, kind of what Steph was saying, of having the university track jobs that are, if there's enough jobs specifically for international students, is that could vary because, you know, a larger company might, you know, the difference between, you know, if they get some amount of funding for hiring a domestic student, you know, the money that they don't get if they hire an international student might be insignificant for some companies, but it could be significant for a smaller company. It could vary from like year to year, quarter to quarter, depending on that particular company's finances. So it's, you know, definitely going to be a very complex issue. It's not like a simple thing to solve.
Direct response from Edward.
Yeah, I kind of want to summarize what this last chain of comments has been, and it's like I think the survey says that students understand the existence of why jobs funding have requirements. I think the frustration stems from lack of opportunities in general, but not specifically just because of SWP, but like why the university isn't creating new opportunities, maybe just specifically for international students to fill that gap in the meantime. And the second part of this is with the communication and the frustration that comes with applying to a job where it doesn't say that's SWPP funded anywhere in the description, and getting an interview only to be turned down at that point, and already having invested so much effort into applying for a job. So I think those are the two kind of issues here, is that increasing opportunities, but also increasing communication very early on.
Thanks, Edward. So I think this brings us back to Steph. Did you have 2 points you wished to make originally, or did you type 2 ones in error?
I typed 2 ones in error.
Okay, then that brings us to Cannon.
I was gonna bring up a point. First of all, I'll kind of directly respond to Jay and then loop into my point. A reason a lot of companies are hesitant to hire right now co-op students who are not in Canada, or even to interview them, is because with different travel restrictions changing literally every other week, it happens that the person thinks that they'll be able to be in Canada by then, but they're not able to do that. And the company then is like, they don't have a co-op anymore. My actual point was going to be, so I saw this on Reddit, someone posted this, that they couldn't start their co-op because of travel restrictions. And when they tried to reach out to CICA to see if they can search for another job and get that as a credit, CICA said no, because technically they're already hired, even though their co-op did not begin. I think there are certain areas where CICA can be more helpful to co-op students and figure out how they can try to ease them into different options that they have instead of being a hindrance in people. And I don't know the full case yet. Like, I've reached out to that person, I haven't heard back from them yet, but hopefully CICA can do better.
Direct response from Steph.
Cannon, you're dead naming CEE. Shame on you. Sorry. What I actually meant to say was, yeah. So in conversations that I've had with co-op, they do have a plan in place where they're looking to increase the number of jobs that are available to students who are currently abroad. So basically, looking at the countries that have more international students. And essentially building up jobs in those areas so that students can apply to jobs that are sort of accessible to them and in their region. So I guess, like, in terms of advocacy, just be conscious that that's something that's CE has already had plans, and I'm happy to hold them accountable to that.
Jay is next.
Yeah, just for your information, I just did some search. The Student Workplace Program, the SWPP, if a company enroll in this program, the company can subsidies, the government can subsidy for up to 75% in these students' salaries, and this is only limited to citizens, PRs, or protected person. And for regular jobs or not enrolled in these programs, like every company can claim 25% to 30% for tax credit. This is not limited to citizens or PRs. That being said, this is open to everyone. I mean, the company can claim this benefit no matter the student's immigration status.
Thanks, Jay. So having exhausted the speaking order on this discussion item, if there is nothing else to be said, we will Edward, perhaps with a closing word, actually.
Yeah. With the closing word, I just want to maybe move a motion. I'm just typing it out in chat right now. But essentially, just the two main points being that advocate for CE to improve the number of jobs open to international students on the whole, but also improve employer communications with students around eligibility of jobs and around the eligibility of jobs and students so that employers are well informed and students are also well informed. I'm writing this out, so give me 2 seconds.
Okay. Steph?
Yeah, I'll say that like those are fairly good actionables and I'm happy to do both. One thing in terms of, I guess, individuals who are interested in sort of doing advocacy or whatnot around this, is specific concerns that you have or knowledge that you have about student experiences, like definitely feel free to forward them off to sort of my AVP that works with issues on that front. And I'll probably try and get for the upcoming Co-op Student Council this sort of discussion item on the agenda because it feels as if this is something that maybe decision makers within CE also need to hear.
Thanks, Steph. In the email is coop@wusa.ca for those without access to the chat. Okay, so Edward moves, be it resolved that WUSA advocate to CEE to take steps to ensure that there's an appropriate number of jobs for international students and to improve communication with employers to clearly state job eligibility requirements relevant to international students and dispel misinformation around hiring international students. Is there a second to the motion?
Second, Vicky.
Vicky seconds. So Edward, would you like to speak to the motion beyond what you already did?
Nope.
Does anybody else have comments on the motion before we take it to a vote? Jay?
Yes, maybe just a clarification. So you said like in your second be it resolved that like to clearly state job eligibility requirement. This is already the word works is already they already did. They already said like I remember they said like there's a column or row says citizenship requirement or something like that. To indicate who can apply or which group of students can apply.
Vincent?
I think I mentioned before how I've seen like in the case of requiring a driver's license that those requirements on the job posting aren't always entirely accurate. And so yeah, I think if the box is there but employers aren't filling it out right, then I think we should advocate that CECA takes more steps to ensure that employers are correctly filling in those boxes. Don't say you require a driver's license if you're okay with people taking a bus. Don't say you require citizenship if you'll also take permanent residence. There's lots of ways that employers could put something that is kind of what they mean, but not quite, that would put off students from applying who otherwise could apply.
Yes, makes sense.
So I think that's a good motion.
Yep, and I think the other thing we saw from the survey that Voda ran was that employers just did not put in the requirements sometimes, and it was only brought up during interviews, and making sure that that's included because employers are not far from perfect.
Thanks, everyone. Having exhausted the speaking order on the motion, I will take it to a vote. Does anybody oppose the motion as read? Does anybody wish to abstain? Hearing neither, it carries unanimously. And I am making a privileged motion to take a 5-minute recess. So we'll be back at 12:55 p.m. Eastern. All right, 12:55, folks. I call the meeting back to order, provided I have a secretary. Okay, I see Connor in the live doc, so we're good. Okay, that brings us to our final general order on challenges facing international students at Renison's English Language Institute. Renison English Language Institute Department gives the international students an opportunity to get their English requirements before starting their degree. In the past, certain countries have been paying scholarships for these students, but because the fee is so high for these students to continue on with their education, the countries withdraw their students and place them into U.S. universities due to the price. This is submitted by Representative Econo. Vicky, would you like to speak to it?
It's pronounced Econo, but that's okay. I'll forgive you. But anyway, so yes, this was brought up to concern by a staff member who works extensively with ELI, like that's their job. They were reporting to students were reporting to them about like how it's mostly more like kind of underdeveloped countries, I guess you could say, like Panama, Ecuador, and like South America, Central America, and about like how they have like certain scholarships to pay for education in Canada. Like they select like a few students, but then because of how high international fees are at Waterloo to pay for these, they have found that people like the governments are withdrawing their students and they're putting to to UW and placing them with other students. And another concern that this person brought up to me is that how like Waterloo, I guess, sends the message out of how it's so kind of like internationally friendly or internationally student welcome and stuff like that. But the case is their fees don't fully reflect that, I guess. I mean, I do understand like international students in a way pay more just because that's with any institution, but like it's I think I heard it was like I think at one of the city council meetings or something it was like 30% higher when they used to work for WUSA because they were undergraduate at for social development studies. Like I guess there was some sort of policy that the university would put like X amount of percentage on the like first years and then it would go down, I think, the second year. I'm not fully sure. I wasn't around because it was back in like 2014. But yes, that's all I have to say. It's just like a concern because it's I think mostly the concern, like part of their concern is how the University of Water broadcasts how they're very like internationally kind of I guess friendly or welcoming or they want a lot of international students, yet they don't like they said like there's a lot of like people from India and Asia, which is no problem, keep in mind. It's just like places like Ecuador, Panama, and places like that also want to send their students here, but because of the fees. That's it. I will take questions now.
Thanks, Vicky, and apologies for mispronouncing your name. We'll go to Edward.
Yeah, Vicky, I think you make a good point there with the university branding itself a certain way. And I think that's something we need the university to improve on is improving that transparency and clarity during its recruitment processes of, not only showing off like, the really well-funded, really top achieving types of students and programs, but also kind of showing as a more holistic and, transparent way where it's like, this is how much it will actually cost and tuition will increase this much a year. And like, these are all concerns that international students need to have, and they're very reasonable concerns. My problem I struggle with is how do we convince the university to tone down their marketing? Because that seems something they wouldn't really be open to because that would be hurting their kind of recruitment efforts elsewhere as a whole.
May I respond, Ben?
Yep, go ahead.
So I'm not fully sure. I'm not trying to bring emotion either, is because I want to talk to, I guess, like very like the execs, and I want to talk to people at the university. I want to get like more of a basis of how we can improve things, I guess, in a way, if that's even possible. Knowing because it was just something that was brought up to me like 2 weeks ago, so it's still fairly new, and I don't feel comfortable I don't feel comfortable right now putting in motion, not knowing a lot of the back end stuff. So I would like to have a meeting with like I guess Matthew, probably Ben and Stephanie, and maybe someone at the like one of the staff members at the university in finance or something to discuss to see what can be done. Because uh they were really saying like how the like for instance at Ecuador there's like or not Ecuador at Panama there's like a scholarship program like I said that funds students to come to Renison. And the ELI part is like covered by Renison usually, I think, if it's scholarship, and they've already received like a conditional offer for the University of Waterloo. It's just they need their English requirement, so that's what Renison does, and then they go like once they complete it, they go into their degree. But with the fees how they are, they this person is finding a lot of like governments are withdrawing their students because of fees. So yeah.
Thanks, Vicky. Steph, I don't know if you have a response to that or like a new point.
Yeah. Sorry, because this is quite a lot to take in, but I'll say, I guess, my initial thoughts on okay, so there's essentially two ways I see to fixing this problem. Part of it is revolving around what Edward mentioned around communications from the university about setting expectations and whatnot. But I honestly see this as a little bit of a provincial facing issue, a little bit of a federal facing issue. It boils down to the current way in which universities are structured are set up so that international students are, I guess, highly subsidizing the bill for other national students. And as a result of that setup, it makes it so that we can only really attract mostly students from well-off families or families who have made an immense amount of sacrifice in order to send their sort of students here. And it opens a question of, well, if we want to be an international university, you have to ask the question of like who is able to access sort of our university. And if it's only well-off students or students whose families have made such sacrifices in order for them to come here, then that is probably very much a problem. There's might be some opportunity for, I guess, diplomatic interactions between Canada and those specific countries to basically form agreements there. One thing I will say about the placing them into US universities due to the price, is that to my understanding, international tuition is actually cheaper in Canada in most cases than US. I'm thinking that the universities or colleges that they're sending their students to are probably not really the or at least what would be considered like U Waterloo level at other institutions, or like the like the U Waterloo of the South is not where they're sending them. And that is all.
What Stephanie said.
Yep, go ahead.
So yeah, I don't know like what universities the person didn't disclose that, nor do I know if they actually know fully per se. But I guess I was just wondering if it's possible, like for what step, like when Stephanie said like to do like diplomatic work / advocacy, if it's possible, like I could do it, or unless it falls under one of Stephanie's AVPs to do like some sort of advocacy around that with the government, or is that out of like the realm of WUSA?
It's a little bit out of scope to some degree, because it does. I mean, usually we don't do like, I don't know, diplomatic missions to other countries, or at least addressed at sort of that level. But there are ways that it does fall into our remit, and sort of our mission as a student organization. I do have to think a little bit more on this, but I'll forward you some more information, and I'll try and put you in touch with folks who can sort of help you on this particular front. My only concern coming from like an exec level is that we have like approved our annual plan, and there were quite a bit of items pertaining to international students, but not, I guess, particularly going in that direction. And I do want to make sure that we're able to accomplish everything that we want to this year. So I guess I'm just saying this up front that like I'm happy to support you doing this advocacy work, but what it's likely going to boil down to is that you and other folks particularly interested in it are really going to have to take the lead here.
That's perfectly fine, as I don't mind taking lead for stuff and advocacy. And I know, like, since I have worked with you the past, Stephanie, with the accessibility stuff, there's no problem with that. I just need to know where to go from here, because I don't know much, because like it's not a issue I'm well versed in. I'm more well versed in disability related things, not international fees and international student things. But yeah, if you could just forward me that stuff, that would be great.
No worries, I'd be happy to.
Thanks, everyone. Vincent is next.
I just want to check I'm understanding this right. So there is a English language requirement that international students, I guess, need to complete, and only, like, I guess, wealthier countries are able to give their citizens the funding to, I guess, pay for this certification. And for those who can't, they end up going to other schools in other countries, maybe US, maybe elsewhere. Do these other schools have the same requirement, and it's just cheaper to complete that requirement? Or do they just not have this requirement at all? Or do you know anything about that?
But I would like to see what Stephanie says first before.
Yeah, I was going to take Steph.
Yeah. So Vincent, I think you're actually, I guess, misunderstanding what the problem is here. So getting the English language requirements through the ELI program is actually like reasonably affordable. The issue though sort of comes about is that there are students who go to this program and build a connection with Waterloo and hope to go to Waterloo and qualify. But the way in which like their sort of university experience is financed is sort of through their country providing them with, I guess, additional backing. So a lot of sort of countries within the global south, they'll want to send students out and basically, and there's generally agreements around this, that the student, after getting their education abroad, will come back to that country and work there for a certain amount of years. So it's kind of, I guess, there are concerns around like sort of talent retention, creating sort of economic development in their region. So this is like a national program supported by some countries, and have known folks who have been in similar situations. But yeah, so the problem sort of arises in that students who are in this situation aren't, they're qualified and they're willing to like access Waterloo, but the ways in which their finance work out such that like they can't access Waterloo. And then it's sort of a question of, well, again, if we want to be like an international university and we want to see people from like diverse populations sort of come in, then, shouldn't we be supporting that? So those sort of questions arise here. But it's not like the issue with the Renison program itself, other than the fact that like students who are part of the Renison program, many of them want to end up staying here and then they can't because international tuition is too high.
Vicky next.
I just would like to say, just for some context, I guess, more for Vincent, is I know in Canada, at least, and probably the US. Like, I think doing the program that is at Renison, yes, it's affordable, which is fine. That's not what I'm trying to bring up, like Steph said. I think they have to pass like the TOEFL exam to show that they are proficient enough in English to attend an English school. I know that's all across Canada. I can't speak for the US, but I'm assuming the US will accept it because they do have education in English at a university, like not university, but are well enough. They are able to speak English well enough to attend lectures and stuff that are not in their native tongue, if that helps bring more clarity.
Thanks, Vicky. Next is Vincent.
And then I guess another follow-up. I get this might tie into the question about scope. Are the students' effects, like, are they Waterloo students or prospective Waterloo students? And are they, like, I guess in terms of scope, are they members of WUSA?
So I'll let one of the execs answer the member of WUSA, but I do know like they are, I guess they're considered prospective because they do have a conditional offer, assuming they like pass their English language requirement, but I don't know. That's an exact question about if they're WUSA or not, because that's more logistics that I'm not, because I'm not an exec.
My understanding is that students in like bridged academic success in English and similar pre-admission programs are not undergraduate students, and thus not members of WUSA. Steph?
Yeah, that's to my understanding as well. I guess cases in which they might be would be like, I don't know, if they complete like they finish this program, they become a first year student at U Waterloo, and then all of a sudden their national government decides that tuition is too high and like relocates them. I feel as if that probably has happened in cases before. So there's that. One thing I will say is so there are cases in which we will advocate for the accessibility of education, right? Which refers a lot more, like in a lot of cases, it's sort of targeted at making it easier for sort of students coming out of high school to get into university and whatnot, that address like who is ultimately able to attend university. So it is technically within our remit to do work around this. I would argue that it's more so within UCRU and USA's remit to do that, but as an entity that are part of those two alliances, you know, we can always float this information up to them and sort of get it addressed. But like I do see Vincent's point, and it's one of those things where it's vague as to whether or not it's actually within scope or not.
Next is Jay.
For the math faculty, I know there's a program called iBase or ELAS. I don't know what that stands for.
Yeah.
And I know students like who didn't like whose English is not their first language, or they need to improve their English skills. They need to take some courses before entering the math faculty or become a first-year student at the math faculty. But at the meantime, they also take one math course in the faculty. But I'm not sure if they are WUSA members or not. But they are taking a academic course at the math faculty. I remember it's Math 137, if I remember correctly. So if they are taking a course at universities, are they considered as WUSA members? If they are considered as WUSA members, then that's something we can work on. It's in our scope.
Yeah, I guess the answer to that depends on their enrollment status, which I don't know specifically for that program, but I imagine if you're taking part-time studies, then you are a part-time student and a member of WUSA. I could be wrong. Vincent, I don't know if you were trying to say something there.
Oh. Oh.
No? Okay. Sorry. In any case, okay, Vicky, go ahead.
I just would also like to say I know the ELI Institute is also trying to build relationships with the different faculties. Like I know they have, I think, successfully done with, I think it's math or engineering or both to help establish those connections. Don't know about the others. I just know that's what we've been broadcasted a lot because I know they're always looking for peer mentors to come and talk to those students. But yeah, so that's another thing. That's it.
Thanks, Vicky. Does anybody else wish to speak to, I guess, this question or discussion item? Okay, seeing none, we will move to new business. Any counselor can raise any item of new business if they wish. Seeing none, we will move to announcements. Any counselor may make an announcement. I might suggest, Catherine, maybe an announcement about volunteer appreciation. If you have
Yes, so I was
details.
just about to say that. Is there echo? Okay, wait, hold on. This is a problem. Okay. Can you hear me now?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Yes. One, volunteer appreciation is coming up and you are invited. It's a night we do termly to sort of say thank you to people for contributing to WUSA and all of that, and counselors do that. Tonight is also the deadline to nominate somebody for a volunteer award. So I believe it's actually in my report, a link to go there. And so any club president, any volunteer, all of those folks. There's also an advocacy section, I believe. So I think y'all count there. So feel free to throw some nominations in there, and we'll be deciding winners soon in IAC. And then lastly, there's also something in my report as well, in that I am looking for an undergraduate student representative to join me on the Wellness Collaborative Advisory Committee. So if you're interested, email me and I can get you back with some more info.
Thanks, Catherine.
And
Yes, Steph.
is it possible to go back to new business because my computer is glitching out and I couldn't type during that entire section?
Sure.
Okay. Hi there, friends. So I'm hoping to do, I guess, some advocacy pertaining to the fact that there are currently very little supports to, I guess, like for your education or to be diagnosed or whatnot for students who don't have a permanent disability. So that's kind of like, so only students get like.
Steph, if I can interrupt, can you give like a summary of the topic you wish to discuss? Because we need to vote to consider it.
Yes. Okay. Hi there. I want to discuss federal aid for students with disabilities.
Okay. I will put in the chat, consider. Thumbs up is yes, consider. Sad is no, angry is abstain, and it requires 2/3. Okay, it appears that council will consider this item. So go ahead, staff.
Sorry, 1 second. I'm just putting that motion there. So essentially, this is something that I want to do. I think that we should have like more supports available for students with different disabilities that currently aren't covered because of the stringent requirements by the federal government. But when looking through the policies, because we actually don't have any specific advocacy related to sort of disability or financial supports for disability, like I wanted to get council's blessing to move forward with this because I am planning to use sort of my AVP resources and to submit a letter on behalf of WUSA to sort of the government on this front. So I wanted to make sure that this is something that council was okay with before I started investing WUSA resources to do this.
Thanks, Steph. So there's a motion, be it resolved that council empower the VP Education to advocate to the federal government to expand its grants and bursaries for students with disabilities to include a broader range of disability types. Is there a second to the motion?
Vicky, I second.
Vicky seconds. Steph already spoke to the motion. Does anybody wish to speak to the motion?
I guess I could. I'm full support of this, not just as the person who is the commissioner, but as someone who does have disabilities. And I feel like it would be really empowering to those in the disability community who either at university or want to future attend post-secondary. And I would like to see this change happen if it's possible.
Thanks, Vicky. Does anybody else wish to speak to the motion? Seeing none, we will take it to a vote. Does anybody oppose the motion as read? Does anybody wish to abstain? Hearing neither, carries unanimously, and you have a green light, Steph.
Merci beaucoup, and sorry for the last minute.
Bienvenue. And Vicky and Connor wish to be noted in favor of that item. Now we do backwards in time announcement on volunteer appreciation. Are there any other announcements? Hearing none, I adjourn the meeting at 1:22 p.m. Thanks, everyone.
Woo!
We did it.
Woo.
Yay.
All right.
Accomplished.
Everybody get off your computer and throw it out the window.
Okay.
Is WUSA gonna pay for a new one?
Okay, Ben.
No. Thank you. Listen, have you ever seen the movie Fight Club?
We don't talk about that.
Fight Club is about fascism, by the way, and how people get swept into it.
Oh, Michael's still here.
I came back for the end, everybody.
Yay.
A sweet person. All right, I'm leaving.
Bye.
Bye, Ben.
Have a good weekend, everyone.
Bye, folks.
Bye.
Oh, can someone remind Ben to end the recording?
I'll do it.
Okay, thanks. Oh, maybe I can.